spade a spade, that's a historic victory, okay? Offensively, you put up some historic numbers today because you didn't give a about the scoreboard.
It's hard to score in this league, but to be able to put up 70 points, I think that is going to put a lot of teams on notice that we're nothing to play with.
70 points is crazy. That's all stats. That's like video game type stuff.
Your Madden rating to increase after this week's performance?
You better do something. Then obviously my speed, because I don't want to be tired with Raheem. We always talk about trash to each other, but no, hopefully that happens though.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher, and that was the duo of Raheem Mostert and Achane talking about the Dolphins hanging 70 points on the Broncos Sunday.
Could have been more.
And
they were
it
nice.
Easily could have been more.
Should have been more.
Would you kick the field goal?
I would have, yes. But I'm not a nice person. Yeah. I know you would have. You would have faked a field goal. Jay Croucher would have faked the field goal. Would have gone for a fake field goal.
Sean Payton would have.
Yeah.
If it was the other way.
That's also true.
When they got to 55, I would have started going for 2. Just go for 2 every time.
see how far you can run it up.
There's been some talk about Mike McDaniel disrespecting the game with how he ran up the score. Please, the Denver Broncos defense disrespected
Thank you.
the game.
Exactly.
They're the
That's
ones
exactly
who
right.
need to be punished, not Mike McDaniel. He did everything that he should have.
He absolutely should. I remember when Kobe went for I think 83, and I was at that game, the game against the Raptors. Yeah, exactly. And all they did was keep, they kept feeding Kobe. They didn't need to. They're like, let's get you the record. They just kept feeding Kobe. And weirdly, Toronto kept fouling him. If you go back and watch that game,
Rose.
Right, he shoots a lot of foul shots. And so anyway, whatever. The fact of the matter is, friend of the show, Raheem Mostert, as he prefers to be called, that's how I remember it. Raheem the Dream puts up just a monster day, as does Achane. Our friend. But here's what's, I think it's a note to all NFL players out there. You come on the show, you put up a monster note. By the way, Deebo Samuel had a huge game on Thursday night. No one remembers that because of what the Dolphins just did. But
not a great game for CD Lamb, but that's okay.
Well, whatever. It's been a while since he's been on the show. But,
come back,
come back. It's not, CD Lamb can't throw the ball himself.
It's true.
Can't throw it to himself.
That's fair. All right. Let's jump into
get on this show.
Yeah, I would love to do a show today. Let's jump into the Rotoworld Player news. We have a lot to get to today. We're going to do Weekend Warriors. We're going to get into the Sunday Scaries, of course, but we have to start with the Broncos-Dolphins game because Raheem Mostert and Achane combined for 8 touchdowns and 103.1 fantasy points. Yes, 103.1. Achane, obviously a breakout game in his rookie season. He gets 18 carries for over 200 yards. He also catches 4 passes for 30, and each having 4 touchdowns, Barry, was just unbelievably ridiculous. The Broncos weren't tackling anyone. They weren't playing any defense. And the Dolphins, we talk about this pass game a lot, but the run game was absurd.
We talked about this a little bit on Fantasy Football pregame Sunday morning. Now, obviously, we didn't expect over 100 fantasy points. We didn't expect 8 combined touchdowns, but we did say that we thought, hey, the Denver Broncos defense is not something that we particularly are impressed with. We saw what Brian Robinson did to them the week before, that you could run on Denver, and we were like, hey, West Coast team traveling east for a 1 o'clock game in the hot Miami sun. This could get ugly. Again, we did not predict 70. I'm not sitting here saying we predicted 70, but I'm not surprised that the Dolphins put up a big number here. You and I, Jay, both like the Dolphins to cover the 6.5. Obviously, they did that very easily. But, it's where to start here.
I think the question is
how real is it?
Well, how real is it for Achane in particular?
Right.
How much of a thing is he? Because is he just the starting running back now on the best offense in football and a top 12 running back the rest of the way? Or is he just going to go back to getting, in a normal game, 9, 10 carries and be that kind of guy?
I think it's somewhere in between, which is, remember, again, as you see the no-look pass, it's just,
Patrick,
exactly. That's the thing. The running backs did so much in here that no one's really talking about Tua. Tua played a great game. I just feel like he's not getting nearly enough credit. It's a lot of why didn't McDaniel go for the field goal and the running backs? But Tua played an absolutely monster game. To answer your question about Achane, here's what I will tell you. is that Jalen Waddle wasn't in this game. So first off, that's, I think, part of it. They used Mostert actually in the passing game, second most receptions, and second most targets on the team for Mostert, second most receptions in Mostert's game in a career. So they used him, I felt like, somewhat in the Waddle role. I thought it might be a Braxton Berrios or River Craycraft, but no, it was actually Raheem Mostert. But think about what Mike McDaniel did last year and what we've seen him do in San Francisco. It was Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr., Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert. I just think Devon Achane takes that Jeff Wilson Jr. role. One of the reasons why Mostert and Wilson and even Achane to an extent were devalued in ADP coming into the season was because people were, well, this is going to be a committee. And now I think I don't know how you put Devon Achane back on the bench after this performance. Having said that, Raheem Mostert did nothing to lose the job. So do I think he's the starting running back of the Dolphins? No. Do I think he's going back to just to 9-10 touches a game? No. So I think it's somewhere in between. They play at a very fast pace of play, and this offense is clearly explosive enough. We're not expecting 70 every week, but this offense is obviously explosive enough that both guys can be startable fantasy running backs every week in fantasy football. I think the biggest loser here is probably Jeff Wilson Jr., who I just don't, as long as those two guys are healthy, I don't know how they come off the field.
Yeah, to me, Connor, the most ridiculous thing out of all of this is that Raheem Mostert had 142 yards, 7 receptions, 4 touchdowns, and you probably feel worse about him going forward now just because of how good Achane was. I mean, what kind of role do you think that Achane will have from here?
I mean, it's weird to say change of pace because change of pace in this offense is something that matters a lot because the change of pace in the Dolphins backfield, they're all fast. They're all great. They all can hit the big play. But it feels like they know a couple things. Number one, Mike McDaniel's been with Raheem Mostert most of his NFL career, going back to San Francisco. Mostert's a guy that breaks down if you use him too much. They want to be careful by not just burning him out. So you have Achane now that can split the carries, or in games that you're dictating the entire rhythm, you lean on him, and they did lean on him in this game. And while we're trying to figure out the usage, guys, we talked a lot about Achane's talent on the draft.
Yeah. Before we get there, hang on for one second. 2 things. Number one is a lot of people are victory lapping Devon Achane. They talked up Devon Achane. But what we would like to do right here is we would like to victory lap the people who are victory lapping, because this clip is literally from draft night. From draft night. NFL draft night, not fantasy draft night. From the actual draft night. The Friday night, night 2 of the NFL draft. Roll the clip.
Speed. Miami loves speed. They love stressing you on the edges, or if you can hit one in between the tackles and get upfield, and that's what Devon Achane can do.
I've seen a lot of Achane, and I have to tell you, he's fast. He's also physical. He's tough to bring down. He was very productive in the SEC, and now he goes to a tremendous play caller in Mike McDaniel.
Tough seeing those silver headphones again, but it was a really good point that you both made.
No, 100%. We had some technical difficulties we needed, but anyway, if I could get a Bose sponsorship, I'd be down for that. I'm a big fan of Bose, as is Connor Rogers, but we're an even bigger fan of Devon Achane, as you saw there. Again, that was literally draft night. Everything we said on draft night has come true. We talked about it in the preseason as well, but most importantly, he's only rostered in 41% of Yahoo leagues. So he's out there at about 60%, 2% started him. So can you imagine seeing all those points on your bench? This is blow your budget. This is, number 1 waiver pick. This is go all in on Devon Achane. You have likely seen the best game of his career.
Yes.
Not forget this here. This is literally going to be the best game of his career. But again, is this a fluke? It isn't. He's a fast, powerful runner in an offense that is tailor-made for him. There is a reason why Mike McDaniel stood on the table and went to get him. That was not in that clip there, but that's what we talked about draft night as well.
Yeah. And look, just don't be surprised if you do blow your budget on him that he has 9 carries for 37 yards against Buffalo this coming week, because that is also could be in play in a timeshare going up against a better defense. But then the week after against the Giants, he could easily have 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think it's going to be inconsistent. He's not going to be a typical, hugely valuable running back in fantasy, but obviously he has to be started everywhere for the time being.
Without a doubt. And when you look at the Dolphins offense, I mean, this tweet from Pro Football Talk just on their speed, it's just insane when you look at what they have. All the guys that are hitting top speeds in the NFL, well, they all play for the Dolphins, whether it's Tyreek Hill, whether it's, of course, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert. I mean, this Miami offense, you could buy in pretty much anybody that's going to handle any near majority work of the snaps.
Yep, and again, we've only mentioned Tua Tagovailoa's name once, but he's obviously a locked-in top 7, top 8 fantasy quarterback the rest of the way, clearly. He was kind of an afterthought in this game. All he did was go 23 of 26, 309 passing yards and 4 touchdowns.
And Tyreek Hill, by the way. We haven't even talked about Tyreek Hill.
9 for 157 on the touchdown.
Right, I mean, Tyreek Hill, just another day. I mean, Tyreek Hill is, anyway, but like, there's a very good scenario where Tyreek Hill finishes the year as the number 1 fantasy wide receiver, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's him and Jefferson. Like, again, I just pour one out for everyone that decided they're sitting there at the draft into the first round. Like, I could go Cooper Kupp, I could go Tyreek Hill. I'm gonna go Cooper Kupp. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna
do? You were on this one 2 weeks ago, and hopefully people listen then. Is the value going to start to run out on McDaniel, Coach of the Year?
Well, here's the thing, is that if he goes into Buffalo this weekend and wins, then he's pretty much just going to play a straight bat from there, and he should win Coach of the Year. The thing is, with what we talked about, is that people are just going to be desperate to vote for him because he's so cool, and the offense is so cool, and they're so fast, and he is just great. And you combine the personality with the play calling and the very visible coaching, and also the fact that I don't think people really think of Tua in the same breath as Joe Burrow or Josh Allen.
Correct.
So the credit will go to the coach in a big way.
The credit will go to McDaniel, and again, we talked about this. It's a media award, and the media loves and rightfully so, by the way. Mike McDaniel's awesome, right? I mean, but like they like him. Like he's not I legitimately think one of the reasons why Belichick didn't win all those years is just like he's not media friendly.
Yep.
It's insane. Like that 10-year stretch.
Decided by humans.
I mean, Belichick should have won every single year. You know what I mean? The fact that Belichick's got one Coach of the Year, maybe 2, I think, in his career. Like he should have won it for a decade straight. Every year the Patriots were elite. And anyway, but that's my point. It's a media award. The media loves Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, compare that to I can't remember a single thing Dennis Allen has ever said. I just literally cannot think of a quote that he's ever said. Whereas McDaniel, I just see him all the time, and he's such a great quote.
Mike McDaniel, formerly a ball boy for the Broncos, 15 some years later, he hangs 70 on him. Insane story. But with
I do love the stuff that you've seen around social media, and we'll move on to this very quickly, but just the stuff that, like, Mike McDaniel couldn't get an interview. A former Denver Broncos ball boy, number 1, and number 2, couldn't get an interview. Like, the Broncos didn't think enough of him to interview him for their head coaching job. Achane and Mostert, by the way, 96.5 points. That was more than Ken Walker, Christian McCaffrey, Zach Moss, and James Conner combined, running backs 3 through 6.
Yep.
So those two, who obviously were number 1 and 2 in fantasy points, combined for more than 3 through 6. I mean, it just, anyway.
If you had to play against them this weekend, you should drink free, but we have a different surprise for that later.
Exactly, 100%. I want people, but please tweet, and I'm having people do this, but tweet at me at MatthewBerryTMR or exit me, whatever you want to call it. Whatever. I want to see who played, because there's, the way the draft fell, you easily could have played against like Justin Herbert, Raheem Mostert, and whether CMC, right, or Ken Walker. You could have had Keenan, somebody had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, or like Jefferson. I mean, like it just kind of this, I've already seen some people that face 250-point games, like they're just ridiculous. And somebody picked up Zack Moss off the waiver wire, and they played a kicker league, and Matt Gay had a monster game, or Brandon Aubrey. So anyway, I want to see it. Bills defense, Commanders.
We'll get to that. Moving over to Chargers at Minnesota. The Chargers pull out a sweaty one, 28-24, on the back of Justin Herbert, who completed 40 of 47 passes for over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, though, the story in this game, as you see Herbert with a monster fantasy week. Keenan Allen caught 18 of 20 targets for 215 yards and also threw a 49-yard touchdown pass, Jay. Keenan Allen, on a day they lose Mike Williams, which is a shame, Keenan Allen reminds everybody the superstar that he is.
Yeah, he is, indeed. And in terms of guys leading the league in targets, you think of the workhorses in Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. Keenan Allen has more targets than any of them through 3 weeks. He is 3rd in the league in receiving yards, and with the news that Mike Williams may have a serious knee injury, that's the reporting so far. I mean, everything. So he's just been it's an ACL for Mike Williams, which is terrible news. But in terms of Keenan Allen's usage, it's only going to go up.
It certainly is. He returned from injury in Week 11 of last year, and since that time, he's averaged 21.9 fantasy points per game. He's the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. We talked a lot in the preseason about what we thought Kellen Moore would bring to this offense. And honestly, again, the Cowboys are getting away with it because their defense is so good, but I think you can you want to talk about coaching, visible coaching. You can see it with the Chargers offense, and you can see it with the Cowboys offense, the difference that Kellen Moore being in LA and not being in Dallas has made. To your point about Mike Williams now being out for the year, there's not much else to say about Keenan Allen, but again, locked in wide receiver 1, has been and will continue to be so. I think, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow on the Waiver Wire show, but with the news that Mike Williams has officially torn his ACL, is out for the year, as you see it there, NFL Network reporting, quote, Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams has torn his ACL and is out for the season. The MRI confirmed. That is from the NFL Network. And I would just, first off, terrible. I'm pouring one out for my Dynasty League team, by the way. Probably not the biggest concern for anyone here. But I feel terrible because Mike Williams, I love Mike Williams. He was having a great season. This is tough for him. So get better, get better soon, quick, Mike. Let's talk about Josh Palmer, though. I know a lot of people are going to talk about, Quentin Johnson, right. Quentin Johnston, to me, has not looked fully ready for prime time yet, Connor. Yeah. And last year, Josh Williams played 3 games in which Keenan Allen was active, but Mike Williams was out. 19% target share, average 13 fantasy points per game. To me, I feel like Josh Palmer is the pickup here, and Quentin Johnson remains just kind of a late season stash if you got a deep bench. I'm with you. Quentin Johnson coming out of college was inconsistent. He wasn't a guy that majority of his games he'd have over 100 yards or they'd lean on him. He was an inconsistent route runner. The ball skills for a guy that size were up and down. He was actually better with the ball in his hands for a bigger player than the ball skills. So I think for the Chargers, they care about winning right now, and Josh Palmer's been there long enough that you think they would lean on him. Maybe there's a halfway point or later in the season where like, Quentin Johnson is ready to be on the field and he'll catch a touchdown here or there. But I would be surprised if Kellen Moore views it that way right now.
I think it's a concern as well that we've seen guys come into the NFL as wide receivers and have immediate impacts. Last year, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Justin Jefferson, his rookie season. Guys are able to come in.
Jordan Addison right now.
Jordan Addison right now. Tank Dell right now, who's the number 1 wide receiver on his team already, it seems like, with Nico. Puka Nacua is the best player in football, apparently. And then Quentin Johnston, who's had, what's he had? He's had 8 targets in 3 games, which isn't great, and he just isn't being utilized. He was kind of down their depth chart in the preseason as well. I think Josh Palmer is clearly the guy that you want at the moment over Quentin Johnston, and Johnston's just a hope and stash. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I mean, they couldn't, and I think it's important to talk about as we're talking about the Chargers offense, they couldn't get the ball running. They couldn't move the ball on the ground. Like the only way which is helpful if you have Keenan Allen, if you have if you have, I think, Josh Palmer moving forward, if you have Donald Parham, because God forbid Gerald Everett ever fall into the end zone. Like it's apparently Donald Parham's world, XFL superstar Donald Parham. But Josh Kelly, who was on my love list, I thought, okay, look, it was a tough matchup last week against Tennessee, but he should be able to run against Minnesota. Everyone runs against Minnesota. Nope. He had, let's see, what did he have? 11 rushes for 12 yards. Don't forget the 1 catch for 5. Yeah, I mean, absolutely killed all my DraftKings lineups. Sorry about that. That was bad. Just completely missed it. Look, he's had 2 games. He's averaging 2.1 yards per carry. He's had 2 total targets. He's had under 40 rushing yards in 5 of the 6 games where he gets 40% of the snaps. I feel like, Connor, this is just somebody who maybe he's just not good at football.
Just a guy.
He's just a guy. I feel like every time he's got an opportunity, he just doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah, and the Chargers, they've looked for these backup running backs. They drafted Isaiah Spiller. They have Joshua Kelly. The matter of the fact is, and maybe Austin Eckler's right every time he asks for more money, because the run game and the pass game to the running backs when Austin Eckler's out, it's not a drop-off. It goes down to the basement.
Josh Kelly made Austin Eckler a lot of money yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
No one else. He didn't make anyone else any money, but he made Austin Eckler a lot of money because, you see how much they need him.
I do think as well, another takeaway out of this game is I don't think the Chargers are very good, which might be good for fantasy purposes. I think they're going to play in a lot of shootouts. And look, they threw the ball 48 times yesterday, and the defense just hasn't worked so far. And so I think that there is going to be a lot of yardage around, and guys like Herbert, Allen, Palmer are really going to benefit.
By the way, speaking of that, I mean, so they play the Raiders next week. Then they have an early bye. Okay. After that, Dallas at Kansas City, home to Chicago. So the only one that scares you is the Cowboys, right? Because the Chiefs, I think it'll be a lot of junk time. And then Chicago,
even with the Cowboys, whatever Josh Dobbs can do, presumably Justin Herbert can do too.
100%. Yeah, they definitely,
they're
hurting on their,
Diggs.
yeah, exactly. The Diggs injury hurts the Cowboys secondary as well. Last thing from this game, real quickly before we move on, just the other side of the ball. You mentioned KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison continue to impress. Justin Jefferson doing Jefferson type things, and Kirk Cousins continues to be your number one quarterback.
He can support all of them.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
Alexander Mattison. You may have looked at the box score and you're like, oh, hey, 20 for 93. He catches 5 balls for 32. All right, good. He's going to hold off Cam Akers. He had another bad fumble in this one, guys. The production was good, but the fact is he got 82% of the team rushes, right, in back-to-back games now. But again, brutal fumble. He made a couple of miscues that just drive coaches crazy. And again, when you've got coaches that are sitting there with Cam Akers, who they know and they trust, regardless of whatever we think of Cam Akers, I don't think you're out of the woods with Alexander Mattison just yet.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I think he's just not explosive and efficient right now, so I'm with you on that one. Our next game here, one of the surprises, not the surprise, but one of the surprises of the weekend, the Texans beat Jacksonville pretty easily, honestly. Good for the Texans, 37-17. We'll get to all the good with the Texans offense in just a bit, but I think the highlight from fantasy is the bad in this game because of the expectations around Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, and we got to hear from both Trevor Lawrence and a frustrated Calvin Ridley on this rough game.
It's frustrating that this is a team that has played together a lot, has won a lot of big games, has played great down the stretch of last season, and to not click so far is definitely frustrating. And but we have the right guys, and there's the locker room is tight. We believe in one another. That's not going to change.
Obviously, the drop early. Are you lacking some confidence right now after the last couple of weeks?
You want me to lack confidence?
You're not just.
No, man. Just lack of concentration in that moment.
Can the whole offense though lack confidence when things aren't going right?
I mean, we shouldn't. But things trickle down. Yeah, but we shouldn't.
Trevor Lawrence really leaning into the sunshine thing. Right?
A little bit.
Excellent shirt. That's it. You got to pack 2 shirts, though, for every game. A win shirt and a losing shirt. That was the win shirt somehow made it on.
It looks like one of the bank robbers in Point Break at the moment. That's kind of the look that he's
going for.
A little
bit. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit, I want to party with you, cowboy. But from this offense, here's the other thing. I don't think it gets easier. Okay, so their next 2 games are in London. The Jaguars play the Falcons and the Bills.
It's diabolical. Back-to-back London games.
Right, back-to-back London games, brutal. But beyond, Jacksonville's made a point of wanting to be in London. But I don't think Atlanta's a terrible defense, guys. They held Detroit. They're not a pushover defense. And then obviously Buffalo. Then they come home to Indianapolis. Colts, just played solid defense against the Ravens. And then they're on the road at New Orleans on a short week for Thursday Night Football.
Brutal.
The Saints have a very good defense. So, 2 of the next 4 are really good defenses, and the other 2, I think, are middle of the pack or above average defenses. So, I think you are right to be a little bit nervous here about these guys. Now, again, they didn't have Zay Jones here, but Trevor Lawrence has 1 game with multiple touchdown passes this season. He's been under 15 fantasy points in 2 or 3 games this season. Schedule doesn't get any easier. I do think I'm still sticking with Ridley. He's still got a high target share here. He came very close, on some touchdowns. I think the feet get down a little bit quicker. I think the narrative changes on Calvin Ridley. But with Lawrence, is Lawrence still a must-start, no-brainer QB1? I'm not sure.
I think he's right there, just because they've been abominable on 3rd and 4th down, and that just tanks all their drives, obviously. And then he just had these crazy drops that have cost him really dearly. He's been inches away from touchdowns the past couple of weeks. Should have had one early in the game yesterday. So I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be fine. I believe in the talent. I believe in his weapons. I think they'll be okay. The one good thing about the Jags offense is Travis Etienne is getting work, and he's kind of living up to expectations, and he's getting work in the receiving game, which is canceling out the Tank's big
I believe in his talent. I believe in the offense, and I was willing to, the Chiefs game in week 2, I was willing to say, if you go back and watch that, there were so many close misses. They had 8 trips to the red zone and 1 foot out of bound, and it was just kind of just bad luck, bad day at the office. What are you going to do? But then, and listen, Houston's played plucky defense this year, but when you're no, I'm just starting. I'm not thinking about a QB1, which is what we thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be. Like, these are games that you're at home, and even though Houston's been above average, it shouldn't be a defense that you're just like befuddled by, right? And this is a dumb thing, but like his rushing prop, Trevor Lawrence's rushing prop was 14.5 yards, and I was just like, oh, he's crushing that. I think I took the over on that on pregame. He didn't.
He's not running.
He's not running. That's the other thing too, and not that you expect him to be Lamar Jackson, but you'd expect him to get 20 yards. And I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I still believe in the talent with Trevor Lawrence. I think he'll be okay in a bad division, but not great to start.
No, not great.
Go
ahead.
The surprise is the Texans' offense to me. I mean, this group deserves, the spotlight we're going to give them here. Barry, you said for weeks and months that Tank Dell was going to be a thing in fantasy. It's week 3. He goes 5 catches on 7 targets, 145 yards and a touchdown. Tank Dell is a big-time player in terms of the explosive playability. And C.J. Stroud, his best game of his young pro career, very, very efficient, 20 of 32 touchdowns. I mean, the Texans are ahead of where they're supposed to be on offense in my eyes.
Coaching staff has done an absolutely phenomenal job here, and you were absolutely right about Tank Dell. I mean, I kept saying it in the preseason, like, Tank Dell's going to be a thing this year, and that time is now. Now, back-to-back weeks where he has led the team in targets. 17 targets his last 2 games, 12 for 217 and 2 touchdowns. In week 3, he had an 84% route participation. Again, he is the future there, not Robert Woods. Noah Brown's injured. Like, Tank Dell's not coming back off the field. I still believe in Nico Collins, a bit of a quiet game for him, but like, to me, that's the future, is Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And to your point about C.J. Stroud, we'll talk about more about him tomorrow on the Waiver Wire show, because it's a good fantasy performance from C.J. Stroud. He has looked good. We've talked about this NFL-wise through 3 weeks. It's a defense we think they're going to have to throw, especially given the fact that they have a banged-up offensive line. Hopefully they start getting some health back there. But, like, they're going to have to throw, and it's clear that this offense, this coaching staff has confidence in C.J. Stroud to keep throwing.
Yep, agreed. And to me, the most important stat for the Texans offense is that Stroud dropped back 33 times yesterday, didn't get sacked once after getting sacked 11 times in the first 2 weeks. I wasn't sure that was possible, but the fact that he was able to navigate pressure that way, I mean, what have you seen from Stroud so far, Connor?
I just think he looks in control. They hire Bobby Slowick. He comes over from San Francisco with D'Amico Ryans, and it's a lot of quick game. It's a lot of not half-field reads, but he looks like he's seeing the field well, and he's always been accurate.
Reads. He's calm in the pocket.
Exactly,
as well,
he's very composed. He's always had good feel, and he's always been accurate. But the fact he's seeing the field matches so well with those things, and they have some explosive playmakers now that they haven't had in a long time.
No, that's factually correct, and we'll talk again tomorrow on the Waiver Wire show about where. But Tank Dell obviously needs to be. If you've been watching the show and you don't have Tank Dell, it's your own fault, because Lord knows we've talked him up a ton. But we'll talk about where, like. To me, I'd rather Tank Dell than Josh Palmer, of the 2 guys we've talked about today at wide receiver.
Yep, agreed. And just lastly, quick one, Dameon Pierce saves his day by getting in the end zone, but again, he needs an offensive line back before he's going to provide value and be a no-brainer.
The positives are that their upcoming schedule is the Steelers, you can run on them, at Atlanta, so. Home to New Orleans, that's not great, but at Carolina. So 3 of the next 4 are either good or middle-of-the-road matchups.
I would buy low on Dameon Pierce now, because their schedule just rest of the season as a last-place team last year is very, very easy. Stroud is good. I think they're going to be in more favorable game scripts than anticipated, and the offensive line will get healthier.
Agreed.
Our last game here, another upset. The Colts under Gardner Minshew, not Anthony Richardson, beat the Ravens 22-19, and we'll start with the Ravens first, because Lamar Jackson, good completion percentage. He completes 22 of 31 passes for over 200 yards, but all of his work was on the ground in this game, Jay. I mean, he runs for over 100 yards. He has the 2 touchdowns, but didn't throw for any touchdowns. This just feels like the offense was built around Lamar, and all the new pieces and old pieces can't get anything else going consistently.
Yep, a little bit of clarity in the Ravens pass game, in that this is the second game out of 3 that Zay Flowers has had double-digit targets. He looks like the guy. Ravens shouldn't have lost this game. Ridiculous not to call the holding on Zay Flowers on effectively the decisive play of the game.
That's fair.
And also the Colts kicker touched God basically yesterday and just could not miss from outside 50 yards. But look, with Lamar, at least you saw the rushing. 101 rushing yards, gets the 2 touchdowns on the ground. It's Lamar Jackson. He's going to be an elite fantasy option. But again, the high-flying, high-octane Todd Monken passing offense just hasn't reared its head in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was promised a high-flying offense. Where I want my money back. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. He has 0 passing touchdowns in 2 of his 3 games played this year, and it's not getting easier. They're at Cleveland next week.
Who have the best defense in the league right now.
I mean, exactly. The Browns defensively are awesome, are just absolutely awesome. After that, it gets easier at Pittsburgh, at Tennessee, home to Detroit. So that'll be my advice is that if you have a panicky manager in your league that's nervous about Lamar Jackson, even Mark Andrews, who's off to a slow start for him, like, wait 1 week and then pounce because it will get better.
Yeah. On Cleveland's defense, so in terms of success rate against a defense, the 3 best games of any team this year, Cleveland week 1, Cleveland week 3, Cleveland week 2. They've had the 3 best defensive performances of the entire season. That is an absolute defensive juggernaut. It's just the Steelers scored 26 against them because they scored 2 defensive touchdowns themselves. But that is a frightening defense and the best in the league right now. So the Ravens are going to have to figure something out.
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz, one of the best DCs in the entire league. How about the Colts side of this, Barry? Gardner Minshew starts the game. Michael Pittman catches 9 passes on 11 targets for 77 yards. And Zach Moss's success continues on 30 carries for 122 yards. He gets the touchdown on a catch. Are these guys now starting every week in fantasy lineups, Pittman and Moss?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Moss thing is just, it's literally Jonathan Taylor, right? You know, if Jonathan Taylor comes back in week 5 and is he on the Colts? That's the question. If he is on the Colts, then no. But until Jonathan Taylor is back as the starting running back of the Colts, yeah, Zach Moss. I mean, the usage is unbelievable. We talked about it on Fantasy Football pregame as well. He's in the love list this week as well. Over the last 2 games, he's averaging 85% of the team snaps. He's one of only 3 running backs with 30 or more touches in a game this season. DeAndre Swift and, of course, Tony Pollard on that list as well. Since week 15 of last season, right, when he basically was traded over from Buffalo and it sort of became the guy for the Colts. He's the 13th best running back in fantasy on a points per game basis. He's averaging over 21 touches a game. So just massive usage. It was nice to see him catch a few balls in this game as well. Like, he caught 2 receptions and scored a receiving touchdown. So the fact that he's not a complete zero in the passing game, which I think we thought is interesting. I think you lower him a little bit when Richardson comes down because there's some vulture potential there. But no, they clearly believe in Zach Moss. And like again, we're team Jonathan Taylor here, but seeing the success of Zach Moss, you sort of get Jim Irsay's point of like, why am I going to pay you when I'm getting this kind of production out of Zach Moss?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Jonathan Taylor in the Elijah Mitchell, Zeke Elliott role supporting superstar Zach Moss. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. Is he going to come back and just be Jonathan Taylor again, or is he just not going to play football this year? We still have no clarity
or gets traded.
And the Dolphins don't look like they need him, by the way.
They certainly do not. But there are teams out there that could certainly use a running back here. So, but yes, as long as Jonathan Taylor is not playing, Zach Moss is a locked-in, high-end RB2. And Michael Pittman, I never understood his ADP. Like, again, people thought, well, Richard's not going to throw it all. And certainly he's throwing more than we thought. But
he gets 100 targets every year.
100 targets every year. He's a very talented player. I like Josh Downs. I like what I see out of Josh Downs. I think, deeper leagues, that's a guy to keep on your radar here. But, yeah, I mean,
a couple players for Alec Pierce.
Yeah, a couple players for Alec Pierce, exactly. But that would be the pecking order for me, by the way, is Pittman, Downs, Pierce. But not much else to say other than, good for the Colts, man. Good for Shane Steichen. Yeah.
The toughest competition of the year is here. The biggest talents in men's rugby take the stage as 20 countries compete for 20 days of heart-pounding, hard-hitting action at the Rugby World Cup. Watch every match live on Peacock all the way through the final on October 28th, with games also available on CNBC.
Mahomes looking right, back of the end zone, caught, touchdown! Kansas City for the 48th time finds Travis Kelce 9 yards deep in the end zone, and the Chiefs lead 40-0. 3 touchdown passes for Patrick Mahomes.
No, she was going to be here. Did he tell anyone that?
Yeah, but he told me at the last minute. But there's some things with Trav where he kind of just says it, and you're like, you don't know if it's true or not. It was like Friday. He was just like, yeah. I think she's coming to the game today, and then just moved about to the game this weekend, and then moved about his business. So you're kind of like, I guess that just happens. I guess so. I don't know. It's just Travis.
Weekend Warriors. That was Patrick Mahomes, by the way, talking about Taylor Swift being at the game, and Bill Belichick actually spoke on this. He would say, I would say Travis Kelce has had a lot of big catches in his career. This would be the biggest.
Look at Bill Belichick doing humor.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Yes, catching Taylor Swift.
I mean,
or,
a great line from Bill.
Yeah, lots of Taylor Swift related news. Like, by the way, and you know who drinks free today? It's Donna Kelce. Donna Kelce, like, whatever. Everyone's like, oh, hey, Travis might be dating Taylor Swift. Donna Kelce got like 3+ hours next to Taylor Swift. Like, that's pretty good. You know, in the box there. That's a lot of pressure.
Like, hey, Mom, I'm going to put you next to Taylor Swift
right,
for the entire game.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Donna, though, unfazed.
Yeah, the kind of magical ride that Donna Kelce's had over the last year or so just continues. Just hey. By the way, and if you saw some of the shots there, like a lot of it was just Donna Kelce's watching the game, and Taylor's like talking to her. Yeah. She's just like, oh yeah, it's nice, nice Taylor. Like
this is what it's like.
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
Chiefs games. Travis does this every week.
So anyway, listen, I'm a proud Swiftie as well. Well done on Travis Kelce. Listen. Sometimes you put things out into the universe and they happen. Good for Killer Trav there. And by the way, good for Taylor Swift. She seemed to have a lot of fun at the game. Here's hoping these two young kids found love.
Yeah. Well, she was into it. She was all in.
She was like, if you could read her mouth, you know, I think she said the F word there.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say that on it's Peacock. Yeah. What did she say?
I think she said, let's freaking go.
Yeah. I don't think she said freaking.
Does she curse, Taylor Swift?
Apparently she does.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll find out at, maybe she'll come to MetLife for Sunday Night Football.
I tweeted this out. It's, LFG, Taylor's version.
Yes.
Which I thought was semi-clever. Anyway, we're all big fans of Taylor Swift here. We're also big fans of Travis Kelce. At least I am. Listen, you got $3.
Kelce.
I got Taylor Swift. I'm just letting you in right now.
Yeah, it's coming.
You have 3 daughters. So, yes, get on board. At some point, Taylor Swift is coming into your life. Yep. Might as well get on board now.
So it's like Devon Achane?
Yes.
Did he get in early? Yeah,
yes.
Better to be a week early than a week late?
It's like Thanos. It's inevitable.
Okay.
It's inevitable. I'm just saying. Anyway, you'll enjoy it. Just come on in. The water's fine. Become a Swiftie. I love it. So anyway, glad she had a great time there. Glad she got to see her potential new beau score a touchdown. It was and then they left the game. I mean, anyway, the whole thing, he rented out a restaurant afterwards.
Stay tuned. They come to MetLife on Sunday to play the Jets,
it will
the
be interesting
high-powered
to see.
Jets offense.
That is Sunday Night Football. It's right. Chiefs at New York for the Jets be right here on Sunday Night Football. So it'll be interesting to see if Taylor does come to the Big Apple.
Mahomes v.
East
Carson
Rutherford.
Wentz, hopefully.
East Rutherford. Well,
you could kind of see the Big Apple, but you're in the swamp.
She's played East Rutherford. She's played MetLife Stadium before.
Right.
So
that's
once again, maybe she just goes to the stadiums that she's played and not to see her friend there play.
All right, our weekend warriors. Let's start with Amari Cooper, who has a monster game, 7 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown, almost 25 fantasy points. Currently a top 10 wide receiver on the week. I think most notably, though, Barry, finally a good week from Deshaun Watson. Who,
yes.
If you have Amari Cooper, you need that from Watson.
So this should have been a touchdown.
That's ridiculous.
This was called. They say he stepped out of bounds on this
right
play.
There.
He's like he's not even close. Like that might be the worst.
He has orange cleats on white lines.
I mean, not since Curtis Samuel got mugged in the end zone last year has there been a call this egregious. I wonder if it was the same ref too. That's a bad call. So Amari Cooper, monster game, 7 for 116 and a touchdown. Honestly, should have been 2 touchdowns and should have been like 136 yards, 140. Like again, just an absolutely outrageous game. To your point, yes, the most important, Amari Cooper doing Amari Cooper things, but Deshaun Watson finally looked good, guys.
Yep, that's probably the most relevant, I think, football takeaway from the whole week is that Deshaun Watson kind of looked like the guy that he was in Houston for the first time. If I was going to make one bet on the Super Bowl right now, it'd be the Browns at 24-1. So I think they got the best defense in the league, and if that Watson shows up again, then they can be as good as anyone. But the fact that he's able to have that kind of day, 27-33, 289, 2 touchdowns, takes the 3 sacks but no picks. He looked really good.
Yeah, and I think, next week, he did what he should have do because the Titans' defense is brutal, especially their pass defense, right? Their run defense is good, but their pass defense is brutal. So he looked good against a bad pass defense. He did what he should do. They play Baltimore next week, then they're on a bye, then they're home to San Francisco. So the next 3 weeks, I think, will be really telling for Deshaun Watson, but certainly a positive sign for him and the entire offense as well. Worth mentioning, Elijah Moore now has 25 targets in 3 games this season. It's finally happening for Elijah Moore. Now, it's all like at the line of scrimmage,
Right.
but they're manufacturing touches for him, which I think is interesting.
Jay, how about Sam LaPorta this week? He's currently in line to finish as tight end 1, depending how Monday Night Football goes. Catches 8 passes for 84 yards and a touchdown. He has been, he's been on the field all preseason. He's been on the field all regular season. He's a consistent thing in this Detroit Lions offense.
I mean, he's tight end 2 in fantasy right now, 3 weeks into the season. He's been a monster, and outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's been the guy. And he's just the locked and loaded. You start him every single week, and he's going to be a top 5, 6 tight end the rest of the way.
I think you're right. Second highest target share on the team after the Sun God, at least 5 receptions every game this year. It's only going to get better. Again, we like Jared Goff. We like this offense. Sam LaPorta, I agree with you. Locked in as a mid-tier tight end 1. Like he's right there, like with Dallas Goedert.
Yep.
The Packers with a wild game, and a lot of that inspired by Jordan Love's second half. Jordan Love finishes the game 22 of 44, 259 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. Ends up, though, guys, with over 24 fantasy points because of the rushing. 9 rushes, 39 yards, and gets in the end zone on the rushing there. I mean, we talked about Trevor Lawrence, if you can continue to start him, and the question is raised because some lower-end quarterbacks are kind of making their way up in the fantasy rankings like a Jordan Love.
I know, Jordan Love, he continues to put up fantasy points, to your point. I mean, he's the 6th best quarterback in fantasy, and his upcoming schedule is pretty nice. Home to Detroit, at Las Vegas, and a bye, then at Denver.
Oh, fiesta.
I mean that's right, exactly. I mean, so it is. I think, he's had back-to-back games with over 20 rushing yards here. He's averaging 22.5 fantasy points per game, and it also feels a little bit fluky. But and in terms of real life, he's, I think, inconsistent in terms of some of the throws. But also, by the way, no Christian Watson in this game, no Aaron Jones. Like A.J. Dillon's giving you nothing. So let's see what he does when he's got a complete offense. So I'm in on Jordan Love as a viable streamer. Certainly next week he'll probably be in others receiving votes. The Love will make the love list. By the way, this is pointing out to me in the break. As long as we're talking love-hate real quickly, like, I'm taking strays for no reason. I originally thought I was going to put I had Josh Kelly on my initial list, but then I'll give some credit here. I was talked out of putting him on. So we didn't put him on the love list. So again, I did play him in my DraftKings lineup. So I mean, I'll take that stray, like whatever. And I did think he'd have a better game than he did. But just so you want to know, like, he was not on the love list. Raheem Mostert was on the love list, though. So you're welcome, America.
Okay. Do you want to talk about Dameon Pierce? Or should we talk about Jordan Love?
No, let's move on.
Yeah, move on.
Jay, how about the volume for Kenneth Walker? 18 carries, 97 yards. He gets in the end zone twice. More importantly, he also catches 3 passes for 59 yards. A big day for Kenneth Walker.
Big day for Kenneth Walker. Again, really favorable game script in the second half. And I think the big thing there is that Zack isn't a thing at the moment. So Kenneth Walker, I mean, he's a RB1, low-end RB1, high-end RB2 until further notice in an offense that has found its way after a terrible week 1 against the Rams.
Listen, guys, when we found out Bryce Young was ruled out, our fantasy reaction was maybe Andy Dalton can do more for this passing offense, and that comes to fruition. Adam Thielen catches 11 passes, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Barry, this was a throwback Adam Thielen performance.
23 targets now over his past 2 games. Again, game script favor, but their schedule is really nice. Minnesota at Detroit, at Miami. Miami's a really good defense, but they'll be blown out. So, second time junk point. Look, it just goes to show you there's value from old people. Hello. So I just want to say, like, hey, Adam Thielen, we are a pro Adam Thielen. We are pro AARP here at the happy hour.
Tough 80 seconds for Barry.
That's what I'm saying. By the way, DJ Shark had a nice game here as well. Jonathan Mingo left this game with an injury. Hayden Hurst is no longer a thing. You can feel free to drop him. We'll talk about more about tomorrow. But yes, as long as Adam Thielen is healthy, he's going to lead this team in target share and be a viable wide receiver. I know he's 31 fantasy points. I don't think you're going to see every week, but do I think he's a viable wide receiver 2-3 kind of on that cusp? I do, because of the massive target share.
Yeah, I like that Barry just has completely buried the soul of Hayden Hurst, and the Panthers might as well not bother showing up for the Miami game. So that's a 20-point loss.
Well, on the bright side, Adam Thielen's back.
Do you disagree with either of those statements?
I don't.
All right, thank you very much.
No, I agree.
Listen, the surprise of the week had to be the Arizona Cardinals beating the Dallas Cowboys, and James Conner. We knew the volume would be there this year for James Conner. Shout out to the scrappy Josh Dobbs.
I love Josh Dobbs. That's one of my guys.
He's easy to root for, man.
He's easy to root for. If you took the names off the back of the jerseys, who's the better quarterback yesterday, Dak Prescott or Josh Dobbs? I think it was Josh Dobbs, and I don't think it was particularly close.
Josh Dobbs only had one more incomplete pass yesterday than Tua Tagovailoa, who had one of the greatest performances ever.
Josh Dobbs had, week 1, tough game against my mighty Commanders, but Josh Dobbs, we're going to talk about him tomorrow on the waiver wire. Josh Dobbs is averaging, I think, about 20 fantasy points a game over the last 2. Josh Dobbs is suddenly wait, what? He's doing what? It's unbelievable. And as Josh Dobbs goes, the reason we're bringing up Josh Dobbs is because he's moving the offense, which means James Conner is moving the offense. The fact that James Conner was the 6th best running back in fantasy as we head into Monday night against the Cowboys is pretty impressive. Again, everyone was talking to us in the preseason about when we were like, why are you talking about James Conner? He's so gross. You know what I mean? It's off. They did. They're like, gross, the Cardinals offense. And everything like that. The cheap volume. We talked about this cheap volume you could get in the 5th, 6th, 7th round all throughout the preseason as well. James Conner was on the preseason love list. Thank you very much. And he's now had back-to-back games with over 100 yards from scrimmage. He's averaging over 16 fantasy points per game through 3 games this season. 76% of his team's running back touches for James Conner as well. This is completely legitimate. Josh Dobbs has given this offense enough of a lift that when you can do this against Dallas, the volume's going to be there. Locked in RB2.
This is why you don't pay Daniel Jones, because guys like Josh Dobbs are out there. And the thing with him is 6 carries for 55 yards. James Conner and Adam Thielen, friends of the show as well. So congratulations to them. Hope they can keep it up.
Josh Dobbs making it his personal mission that Caleb Williams does not end up on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah,
Good for Josh Dobbs.
You know who could use Josh Dobbs right now? The New York Jets.
You ain't kidding, partner. All right, Sunday. Speaking of that, Sunday Scaries, easy transition. I sat and watched all of the Jets offense, which we'll get to yesterday.
Right.
But we got to start.
In fairness to you, you're paid to do so.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's start with Derrick Henry, 11 carries.
That's same with our producers. Our producers, I had to watch, Barry for an hour, and
we still don't know if they watched.
Though. It's fair.
We actually have no proof of that.
That's a good point. Penn State Blake over there just making bets left and right. All right, go ahead.
Using his guillotine fab.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, 11 carries, 20 yards, just nothing working for Tennessee yesterday, Barry.
Yeah, they're not good.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they played what we believe to be the best defense in the NFL, but it's a decimated offensive line. Ryan Tannehill looks like a shell of himself. Right. They've had in 2 out of 3 games this season. This will make you feel better, I think, if you're a Derrick Henry manager. 0 snaps. Literally 0 snaps inside an opponent's 10-yard lines in 2 or 3 games this year. And so I just think that I think you could see a scenario where it's going south quickly. I could see a scenario where Derrick Henry either gets hurt or traded to a contender, and it is the Tajay Spears show over the second half of the year. We'll talk more about him tomorrow, but again, just bad offensive line, bad offense in a tough matchup.
Yep, that team, they were sending multiple tight ends in motion, the Titans, to try and block Myles Garrett because the offensive lineman had no prayer against him. So that's a concern for Derrick Henry. Bijan Robinson, Connor, he's just going to have these games where he does nothing, I think, because he's just tanked by Desmond Ridder.
He did hit your receiving prop for your pickup line. So he gets the 27 yards through the air, but 33 yards on 10 carries. I mean, let's be real with the Falcons right now. Teams are going to sell out on the Bijan run until Ridder shows he can actually play the quarterback position.
Taylor Heineke is knocking on the door.
We are begging for Taylor Heineke, and hopefully, Ridder was brutal. Yeah, Ridder was brutal.
Rhamondre Stevenson, this is another rough day. This was an ugly game with him and Breece Hall both getting nothing going on the ground. Rhamondre, 19 carries, the volume's there, only 59 yards. This is the bigger thing, Barry. Only 1 catch for 3 yards. He dropped a no-brainer catch too, and it was rainy. Just nothing was really working for him.
And they're at Dallas next week. I will say that I think Zeke looked like the better running back. And I'm a big Rhamondre guy, but I think that, and they used Zeke towards the end of the game there when they were trying to close it out and everything like that. But this might be more of a committee than we think going forward. Certainly nervous about them at Dallas and then home to New Orleans in the next 2 for the Patriots. That's tough. Breece Hall. You just got to hang tough, I think.
You can't sell low. It won't be Zach Wilson forever.
No. And they'll
be Zach Wilson for 2 weeks. You can't keep putting
him out there. Playing him.
Also, we cannot have the Jets and Patriots keep playing each other. One of them needs to leave the division. Every single game is absolutely terrible. This is now 3 straight, just unwatchable football.
You think you're frustrated.
Right.
It's unbearable.
Imagine 8 hours of content on it.
Imagine you were paid to have to do that. That's what, think about Connor's life. Connor's life somehow has led him to have to, he's forcibly.
My exact quote was, the Jets keep putting on the same movie and expecting a different ending. And with that, we will go to break. We're taking, when we're back, it's last call. It's our Monday Night Football preview with our best bets. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. All right, let's take a look at the most bet props for Monday Night Football, courtesy of our friends at DraftKings here. A.J. Brown, alternate receiving yards of 50+, which is odds of minus 295. You probably won't be hitting the jackpot on that one, but that's the most popular. A.J. Brown receiving yards over 67.5. That's his actual line. That's at minus 125. Mike Evans receiving yards over. Puka Nacua receiving yards over. That's set at 64.5. And then A.J. Brown, another alternate receiving yards over 68.5. A lot of A.J. Brown love, guys. Yeah. Jay, what do you love?
Just completely bodied the alternate receiving yards of 50+ as well, Connor. I like that. Of those ones, I think Puka Nacua is the most interesting one because he's just an impossible guy to price. Like you have no idea where to set the line. 64.5. To me, that's too low. He's a guy, because there's so much variance in him, you back the alternate overs. Like go back 125+ in the 8-1 range because he's had 35 targets through 2 weeks. My best bet tonight is Chris Godwin over 52.5 receiving yards. Avonte Maddox on IR. I think the slot corner is going to be a weakness of the Eagles, and I think that Baker will be throwing tonight. Godwin goes over 52.5.
I like that a lot. And I'm also going to say, again, I think the middle of the field is where you attack Philadelphia. The Eagles give up the second most yards to opposing tight ends, so give me Cade Otton over 25.5 receiving yards tonight. I also like Jalen Hurts under 44.5 rushing yards as well. Bucs have allowed the fourth fewest rushing yards per game this season. They held Justin Fields to 3 yards last week. And Jalen Hurts been under 40 rushing yards in both games this season, so give me the under 44.5 rushing yards for Jalen Hurts tonight.
For me, guys, a simple one. I'm going Matthew Stafford over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I feel like that's set a little low. The Rams live in 11 personnel. This passing offense is good. Jay, you said every week Stafford looks like his old self, and they found new weapons in Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell. I think Stafford gets 2 passing touchdowns.
We forget that he literally won the Super Bowl like 20 months ago.
Against this team. Against the Bengals.
Yeah, largely because of him that season, too.
He almost won Super Bowl MVP, and he just looks back to being that guy.
And the other thing is the expectation when we're doing this is that Joe Burrow is going to play. So again, we think the Bengals offense will be more efficient and they're scoring more, and so the Rams will have to throw to keep up. Like, we don't expect this to be a low scoring game as long as Joe Burrow is on the other side.
Yep, line has moved from Bengals -1.5 to Bengals -3, so hitting the key number. So expecting that, I'm not sure what Burrow is going to look like, but I suspect that Burrow, even in limited capacity, is probably going to be better than Jake Browning or A.J. McCarron or whomever. So it should be a high-scoring, fantasy-friendly game.
Jay, one more here. If Puka Nacua just has his third monster week in a row, is this line starting to move to a totally different place? It feels like they're still underestimating a little bit as the number 1 wide receiver.
I mean, it could be mid-high 70s next week if he goes off again, and he's got a chance to put himself back in the offensive rookie of the year conversation with Bijan and C.J. Stroud.
A.J. Brown reception on the first drive is at +130 on DraftKings. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, so I kind of like that as well. Listen, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay and Connor, I'm Matthew Berry. Swifties drink free. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.